One of our members is in the hospital, and her name is Jo Beal. Some of you may know Jo, and some of you may not know Jo, but she's been a very faithful participant in the things that I offer, and also in various ways. And she has a systemic blood infection. I think it's called septicemia. And she was in the ICU. I don't know how long she was, but she's actually not now. So I think she's getting better. But it was a scary and serious occurrence. And I told her daughter, Juliet, that I would bring her into the circle and invite your prayers for healing for Jo. And maybe what we can do is just dedicate our practice to her today. And I'll remind you of that before we go into the practice. But any kind of practice, any kind of meditation and prayer is a powerful force for healing in the world. And that's why also we do the full moon meditation, which is happening tomorrow, of the global healing practice with the earth treasure vases, because our collective intentions ripple out and have an effect and mean something in the fabric of the web of life. So we need to cultivate this, and particularly for those who are in need, this is one of the ways in which sangha or community, practice community, can really uplift each other and hold each other and support each other when we need that. So let's offer that when we can, and let's do that right now for Jo. So maybe let's just take one little breath right now with her in our hearts, and just breathing in, feel her presence, and breathing out, send our intentions for healing to her in all the ways that are needed. Thank you. Jo has also been helping to support the work that I've been doing for the last 10 years in Liberia, Africa. And I actually have come to count on her very deeply to support this work. And so have the Liberian team of peace builders that she has been helping to support. It's something that I haven't really spent much time talking about recently. It's something that I would like to share much more of in the coming months, because this is a deep part of my own practice and the way in which the Dharma of caring and compassion manifests itself in my world by working very closely with a team of peace builders in a very stricken part of the world, still recovering from war, civil war, and now from a very unstable situation politically with a leader who is very corrupt. It's a whole story I won't go into right now, except to say that this year has brought some challenges. Every year brings challenges to this work, but this year has brought specific challenges. And I wanted to maybe plant a seed, not maybe, I want to plant a seed in each of you to contribute to this work, and to support Jo, also to make her feel good by entering into supporting this work. And specifically, the request of the hour is that one of the two primary peace builders, who is a gentleman by the name of Harper Carmen, who is a total bodhisattva. And he and his partner, Christian Bethelson, have been studying mindfulness practice with me for 10 years, also having gone to Plum Village, lived with Thich Nhat Hanh, both before and after his stroke. Christian actually lived at Plum Village for 3 years, off and on, and they have been deeply affected by the practice of mindfulness, and that has informed their peace-building work. Harper has been living for many years in a home that is near a swamp area where there are a lot of mosquitoes, and he gets malaria on a regular basis. And malaria, as you know, makes one very sick. He has land and he's built a house, but he needs to put doors and windows and screens on his house. And in order to move in and buy a mattress, and he needs about $450 to do all that. And I am asking for your help. He just sent me this budget today. And it has been coming for a while that he has to move in order to protect his health. Harper conducts a weekly radio show on a national radio program. It's called Conversations Under the Peace Hut. We have built 5 peace huts in conflict-prone regions of Liberia, where people gather to cultivate mindfulness and learn skills of peace building, which Harper and Christian teach, in particular to women and also to former combatants and ex-child soldiers. The work is really important, and of course it's gotten stopped because of COVID, and that's why he's on the radio. So he's also coming on the radio. This program is coming on Facebook Live now, which is really exciting because it can reach all of us. And if you're interested in hearing him, I'll let you know. But if just, let's see how many of us, let's say there's 20 of us on this call. If each of us gave $20, that would get us there pretty much, right? That's not too much, is it? How much do you value our practice? This coming together, this group, this deep looking and exploring and learning. So that's another dimension to what I want to say, which I never say, and I always forget to say, which is that if you value this, I depend on on your support. So there's the larger world of work in Liberia and other things that Alliance for the Earth, which is the nonprofit, does. But there's also keeping all of this going. So think about that and go online and make a contribution. Recurring donations are so helpful to us. And if that's not possible, then whatever is possible is also helpful. Every little bit helps. So that's hopefully the beginning of an ongoing conversation in some different directions. And thank you so much for your support and your listening. So now to shift gears and say that I am going to be going into retreat. I realized that I wasn't getting to the editing of my book, which has been coming for a long time and is in need of me. And I have found over the last few years that I've been working on it that the best way for me to give it the attention that it needs without distraction is to go into retreat. And retreat is something that I have done every year for many years as part of my Dharma practice. And Kendra, who's in this circle, asked me about the practice of retreat because she said she wanted to do her own retreat, her own personal retreat. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the practice of retreat And first to say that I am not going to bow out of my various groups that I lead every month. It keeps me going to do this, and to do the other groups of practice groups that I lead. But I'm bringing everything else to quiet, and I have thought that what would really help me a lot is to do this group every other week instead of every week for the period of time that I'm in retreat, which will be 6 weeks. So I hope that's okay with you. I feel as if this group is building momentum. We're going deeply. Thank you for your response. It helps me to feel that I can do this because I care about all of you, and I take refuge in you and in this circle. And I have so deeply enjoyed our growth and our deepening. And I just hope that in the weeks off in between, that you don't go away. And in fact, you actually continue to practice, knowing that that's, it's good medicine, right? And it's good to learn how to do it on our own. And it'll be a big support to me to know that you're here, even if we're not together. So we'll meet next week as regular, and then after that it'll be once every other week. And I'll put that in the reminder email so it's clear. Thank you so much. So in terms of the practice of retreat, and oh, by the way, for those of you who might be wondering, our forest fire is getting under control here. They're working on a controlled burn now to fill it in, and it's been really intense to live with the presence of a wildfire 2 miles away for the last 2+ weeks. So, but I'm feeling a little better now, and just wanted you to know. So anyway, I'm jumping around a bit, I realize, but the practice of retreat is so helpful to coming back into balance in the context of the rest of our lives. So you know how we all get going, and there's so much coming at us, and there's so much that we're constantly dealing with, that to stop and to go in and to become quiet and to really draw the curtains, or like I like to say, go into my cave, is a way of kind of resetting the program internally in order to then have the resources to keep going, to take care of ourselves in a very deep way. Thich Nhat Hanh, who was one of my early teachers and still is, I joined his Order of Interbeing in 1985, and in order to agree, if you joined the Order of Interbeing, the agreement was that you would take 60 days of mindfulness a year. So that means once a week plus 8 days, or however you want to work it out. And I took that very seriously and did it. And he came to this formula during the Vietnam War, when his group called the Youth for Social Service, I think it has a longer title, but it was a group of both monks and nuns and mainly lay activists who were working with him, who were doing social work during the war, to recover themselves and to stay connected to their practice in the face of war. So that's the backdrop that this practice of retreat and days of mindfulness, as he used to call them, still does, arose. And for many years, as part of the teaching that I did, and we would take regular days of mindfulness as a group. And those days are a little bit like this, where we come together and we listen to a talk of some sort, and we go for a walking meditation, sitting meditation, walking meditation, both inside in the space that we're in, and also outside. We spend the day in silence. And it's not really until the end of the day that we share a tea ceremony together, and then offer our reflections on our experience in words and speaking. And then that becomes a practice of listening to what's being said and what's maybe also not being said, that we can hear more clearly once we have settled everything down. So these days of quarantine are a lot like retreat, really. And to take advantage of this time in a way that's really constructive, instead of feeling like we should, like, when are we ever going to be able to get out of this? But really to give over to a deeper experience that could arise in the context of being more quiet, going inside. So the Tibetans also practice retreat in a very strong way, in a different way. A lot of the practices in Tibetan Buddhism are done in retreat, and you've probably heard of the 3-year retreat, which people who are really committed to a whole body of practice that comes through a lineage will go into a 3-year retreat in order to just practice, really, pretty much all the time. And I have done 2 what are called nundros. These are the preliminary practices for 2 different lineages that I practice in, and those practices have required me to spend significant time in retreat over the years. And so the Tibetans really suggest, maybe 4 sessions a day of meditation in order to, what they do is they accumulate the mantras that are associated with these different practices. And so taking the time to really go into a mantra recitation practice in the course of a meditation session is a very powerful thing. It involves a visualization. And for those of you who have learned the Taragaya practice, you have a sense of what I'm talking about. So this practice that we do on Mondays of mindfulness practice, and it's just this simple sit, walk, sit, is a great place to begin if that's what you're called to doing. The important thing is to make a schedule and stick to it. To have an intention that you will follow. It's not a good idea, for example, to say you're going to go into retreat and you're going to do a 10-day retreat, say, and then you do 3 days and go, oh, well, that's enough of that. That's not good for your practice. That's not good for the intention that you have set. And there are things that happen when we set an intention, like, let's say, a 10-day retreat or a 3-day retreat for that matter, whatever it is. If you say, okay, I'm going to do a 3-day retreat, then there will be things that happen inside those 3 days that if you cut it short, you won't get to. And there's a beginning and a middle and an end. And that container is a very powerful thing to surrender into. So another aspect of creating the container is to literally, and I do this, literally walk the perimeter, praying for protection, asking for the retreat to be allowed to unfold without disturbance, so that it can go where it needs to go without unnecessary disturbance. You really are kind of sealing yourself into your cave. And when Thich Nhat Hanh talked about doing these days of mindfulness, he always said, you need to unplug your phone. Back then it was just the phone, but now it's the computer and the iPhone and the all the little devices, whatever in the world they are, all of them get unplugged and the ringers are turned off. And we're not checking them all the time. We're not allowing ourselves to be distracted and disturbed by the input coming through all of those means, okay? We also don't drive in the car. We don't go anywhere. We stay in. And that doesn't mean we don't go out for a walk or go somewhere in nature. But these are ways in which we can facilitate the experience of something other happening than just our regular, everyday, reality. So the schedule is probably the best form of a container, and kind of setting out a schedule for each day that's more or less the same every day, and you basically just stick to that. And the structure helps us not to lose our focus, because it's very easy. Oh, well, okay, I've set aside 3 days or 10 days or whatever it is, and then you sort of have all this space and all this time, and then it's like you sort of float around going, well, what am I going to do? That's not exactly what we're doing here. That's more like vacation. There's maybe a little middle ground there, but if you want to decide how many sessions you want to do, then you build that your rest of your day around that. So let's say 2 to 4 sessions of meditation a day, and then your practice, whatever that practice is, whether it's the mindfulness practice that we do here, or maybe the Taragaya practice, if you also know that, or a combination of the both, or some other meditation practice that you are interested in cultivating. And if it's the mindfulness practice, then the opportunity really, with kind of letting everything come to a more quiet place, then you can begin to experience the breath as a thread that runs through every activity. And you can really begin to experience this coming back to the breath over and over again in everything that you do, not just while you're sitting or walking. Deepening into the silence, not entering into chatter with anyone, including yourself, right? Noticing, witnessing what's arising, because things will arise that are under the surface, feelings, that you can't get at when you're in the midst of all of your everyday busyness. And the lack of distractions will allow those to surface. The meditation will facilitate you getting in touch with things. And sometimes it feels like a kind of purging or a kind of purification. And that's natural as you feel into your true self, and what's really there. So I'm going to bring this to a close by just mentioning the altar, tending your altar on retreat. If you haven't made one, make one. It's a support to your practice. When you go to practice, you light the candle, you offer some incense or whatever it is you like to do, some sage or Palo Santo, or, you invoke the sources of refuge that are meaningful to you. Gaia, our verses that we do every time we begin and end a session. That's another part of the container for the practice. And when you go outside, to do your walking meditation, maybe you go to your special spot in nature and you sit there. And also there's the practice of making offerings, whether it's offering flowers on your altar or maybe some of your food to the local guardians and protectors. Cooking in silence, making food, eating it. This is also part of the retreat. And doing all of that in awareness. Reading and writing is a beautiful thing to include in a retreat. Particularly if it's like, I wouldn't say, read that novel that you've been dying to read, even though it's really tempting. But, pick up a Dharma book or some spiritual teachings and give over to that part of yourself. And then in the writing, just allow yourself to write whatever is coming up, what you see. So an example of a retreat schedule could look something like this. You wake up, you maybe make a cup of tea. That's what I do. Maybe spend a little time, my rhythm is to wake up, make a cup of tea, and do some writing, just to kind of come into my own experience. Maybe it's my dreams that are wanting to be reflected upon. Sometimes people go straight into meditation when they wake up. That's my rhythm, and you need to find your own, so think about it. But anyway, wake up, tea, some writing, then go into the practice, light your candles, do your sitting, walking, sitting. Maybe you want to extend the period of sitting a little longer than we've been doing it here. But do everything, make sure that everything is within reach and you're not setting yourself up for failure or it's too much. Go slow, build up the muscle. So then after your first session, you make breakfast. Maybe after breakfast, you go for a walk or you do some reading or writing, and then come back and, or maybe you want to do some gardening. That's a nice thing to do on a retreat as well. Anyway, then you have lunch, right? And maybe after lunch, you go for outdoor walking meditation. Find your spot, sit there, absorb what Gaia is offering. Come back, have a cup of tea, and go into your third session. And then maybe after that, you want to take a rest or do some reading, some writing. And then you have your dinner. And then after dinner, you have your fourth session. And then before bed, or as you are preparing for bed, you set your intention for the awareness of dreams. And, that's basically it. That's basically it. But you can make up your own schedule, but just keep those ingredients and don't go too far afield. Okay? So maybe we can talk about this more if you have questions or want to later after the sit, or next week. Thank you.